My husband returned my stepson to the orphanage after finding out what we did in his car last night. And he had much worse plans for me. And here's one of them. But wait, wait. I'll bring you up to speed. It didn't start in the car. It didn't even start with him. It started with silence. With empty evenings and colder mornings and a smile I wore like a bandage, even when there was nothing left to cover. 3 years ago, a doctor told me my body was statistically uncooperative. I remember staring at her white collar and thinking, even that blouse looks more alive than I feel. My husband held my hand, squeezed once, then let go too quickly. It was supposed to be a gesture of support. Instead, it felt like an ending. We didn't talk much on the way home. We never really started again. Months passed. I learned to fill my hands with small things, herb jars, folded sheets, the hum of the kettle. I started baking even though I hated sugar. I joined forums for women who had made peace with infertility, even though I hadn't. I tried to forget the echo of hope and how cruel it sounded when it finally stopped answering back. And then he suggested we foster. I remember laughing. Not kindly. He didn't react. Just placed a thin, stapled packet on the table. He's older. Young man, independent. Just needs a place to land. Merrick. That was the name on the folder. I didn't read it that night. I just sat at the table and stared at the flickering shadows on the wall, pretending they were answers. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no. And sometimes, that's all it takes. He came on a gray afternoon. The kind that feels like it never really became day at all. He had a duffel bag, frayed at the seams. Pale knuckles. A mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile, but might have known once. His hair fell over one eye, and he didn't push it back. "You must be Merrick," I said. He nodded. Nothing else. The social worker gave us a look I couldn't quite read, then left as quickly as she arrived. The door closed behind her with a final sort of sound, like it didn't expect to open again for a while. I showed him his room, simple, clean, forgettable. He placed his bag on the floor without looking. "It's fine," he said. We had nothing to say to each other. But silence has a shape. And over time, it begins to press. The first few days were frictionless. He didn't ask for anything. Ate when asked. Answered questions like they were math problems. My husband called it easier than expected. I called it something else. I just didn't know what yet. I watched him when I thought he couldn't see. The way he moved through rooms like they weren't quite real. The way he touched objects briefly, carefully, as though afraid they'd vanish. Sometimes I found him sitting on the back porch, unmoving, eyes fixed on something far beyond the trees. Sometimes I found myself standing just behind the window, watching him. It began with the photo. I was changing his bedsheets. A mundane, pointless task I assigned myself because routine felt safer than thought. Beneath the pillow was a folded printout. Not hidden, not displayed, just there. I opened it. A black and white photo of a woman riding a horse. Wind in her hair. She wasn't smiling, just staring forward, strong and silent. It wasn't me, but she looked like who I used to be. I put it back without folding the crease. That night, I asked, "Do you like horses?" He didn't look up. They understand quiet. I should have stopped there, but I didn't. We began walking together. At first, it was nothing. He'd follow me out to the mailbox, then around the garden, then once into the forest trail behind the property. My husband said, "Glad you two are getting along." I didn't answer. Merrick never asked questions, but he always matched my pace. I noticed how he walked with his hands deep in his pockets, like they were dangerous things. One afternoon, the wind picked up, and I tripped on a root. He caught me. Fast. Stronger than I expected. His arms circled my waist, not possessive, not soft, just there. We didn't speak. When he let go, my side burned where his hand had been. That night, I lay in bed and didn't turn when my husband touched my shoulder. I pretended to be asleep, but my pulse said otherwise. He started fixing things. Without being asked, the hinge on the bathroom door, the loose plank on the porch, the broken drawer in the hallway dresser. My husband said, "Good with his hands." I nodded, even as I stared at Merrick's fingers, rough with calluses. He filled the silence of the house like he'd always known its shape. Not like a guest. Like someone who had already known its shape and mine. One day I made tea. He came into the kitchen and sat. Just sat. I slid a mug toward him. Chamomile. He sipped. Tastes like dusk. It was the strangest thing I'd ever heard. And the most beautiful. One evening, the heater went out. The house filled with a biting cold that made me wrap myself in every blanket I could find. Merrick appeared silently, a flashlight in hand. "Basement," he said. I followed. I shouldn't have. The flashlight's beam trembled as we crouched together by the old furnace. The silence down there felt thicker. Every sound echoed, the drip of a pipe, the shift of our breaths. He turned, our faces inches apart. The light flickered across his jaw, his eyes, unreadable, steady. "I'm not cold," I said. He didn't move. "I know." His gaze dropped to my mouth for a second. "Maybe less." I left first. But my hands shook for an hour after. After that, things changed. Barely. Invisibly. But changed. He started passing closer to me in the kitchen. Not touching, but close. Sometimes his hand would brush mine when we both reached for the same thing. Sometimes our eyes would meet across the dinner table, and I'd feel heat rise from my collar to my scalp. Once, I passed by his room and found the door ajar. He was sketching. The same woman from the horse photo. Only now her hair looked like mine. And her mouth was parted, like she had just exhaled a name. He saw me. Didn't hide it. "Is that?" I asked. He nodded. "It's not you. But it wants to be." I didn't sleep that night. Or the one after. It happened on a Sunday. We were returning from a walk, just the two of us. My husband had gone to the city for a business dinner. The car smelled like pine and October leaves. I was driving. Merrick was quiet, as always. Then, I don't know, I laughed at something. A memory. A joke. The sound surprised me. He looked over. "You laugh like you forgot you could." I turned to him. His face was too open. "Don't," I said. But even I didn't believe it. At the red light, I stopped. Not just the car. Everything. He looked at me, too long. I turned toward the window. The silence was too full. And I didn't break it. That night, we sat outside under the porch light. Neither of us spoke. The silence didn't need words. At one point, he leaned closer. His voice was barely audible. "Would you be different if someone had chosen you sooner?" My throat tightened. I turned to him. He was too close. His breath was steady. His hands still. I stood. "We should go in." He didn't argue. But the air between us had changed. And it would never return to what it was. Now here we are. You're caught up. Because last night, in the car, on a back road, It wasn't planned. It wasn't wise. But it happened quietly and too late to take back. The trees passed like witnesses. The stars were hidden. The car interior smelled like pine and breath and every wrong decision I ever wanted to make. I didn't speak. And that silence became the answer neither of us said aloud. We sat there too long. And some lines blurred, too softly to stop. And this morning, my husband found my scarf in the back seat. Just a piece of wool. Nothing special. But it burned like a confession. He returned Merrick to the orphanage without telling me. He didn't shout. He didn't accuse. He just said, "He's not ours." He never was. And then he closed the front door. But I know him. He didn't do it out of anger. He did it to make space. To do something worse. To me. And here's one of those things he did. He made me sit at the kitchen table for an hour while he prepared coffee, black, the way I hate it. He poured it carefully, sat across from me, took a sip. Then he smiled. That smile I once loved. That smile I now dread. He changed the locks that morning. Not all of them, just the one on the porch door. The one Merrick always used when he came home late from his walks. I noticed because the key no longer fit. It turned, clicked, and stopped, like the house itself had decided to tighten its spine. I didn't ask why. I already knew. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I walked through it like I was trespassing. Every corner still remembered him. The mug on the shelf he used without asking. The crooked frame in the hallway he straightened twice without a word. The dampness of his towel, still clinging to the edge of the bathroom door. I didn't remove it. I couldn't. My husband was already in the kitchen. He had made breakfast, toast, eggs, the smell of something burnt under the surface. He didn't look at me when I walked in. Eat, he said, like he was reading a script. I'm not hungry. You never are. I sat. The chair was cold. I thought of Merrick's fingers on my wrist, how warm they were even in the wind. My stomach nodded. He sipped his coffee. Slowly, the sound echoed. Then, finally, he spoke. You made me into something cruel. I looked up. He didn't meet my gaze. He's gone. That should be enough. But it wasn't a question. It was a verdict. That day I walked for hours. Nowhere in particular. The grocery store, the edge of town, a trail I hadn't taken since autumn. My body moved like it belonged to someone else. Every tree looked like it might speak his name. Every car that passed, I imagined it was his. But it wasn't. The silence around me thickened. Like a second skin. Like guilt stretched too thin across bone. I stopped in front of the closed gates of the orphanage. Just stood there. The windows were dark. No movement. No sound. He was inside, somewhere. And I was outside, with nothing but the memory of his breath in the car, the way it fogged the glass when he leaned closer, how the world had fallen away. Until nothing existed but skin and pulse, and the way I couldn't breathe when he said my name like a question he already knew the answer to. That night, I dreamed of glass. It was everywhere, shattered, glittering, falling from the ceiling like snow. I walked barefoot through it, but my feet didn't bleed. Merrick stood at the end of the hall. He didn't speak. He just looked at me. And then he turned away. My husband started watching me, not like before. Not with tenderness, but with calculation. He would walk into a room without making a sound, his footsteps suddenly quiet. He'd stand just behind me while I did the dishes. Not touching. Just near enough that I felt him like a shadow. Once I turned and nearly bumped into him. I gasped. He smiled. Did I scare you? I said nothing, but something inside me cracked. Not from fear. From awareness. He wanted me to feel it, the surveillance, the closing in. And it was working. 3 days after Merrick was gone, I opened the drawer in the hallway and found his sketchbook. I hadn't known he left it. I don't think he meant to. The pages smelled faintly of graphite and eucalyptus. The first page was blank. The second was a horse, wild, unbridled. The third, a profile of my face, eyes half-lidded, mouth open just slightly, like I was caught mid-breath. Page after page. My hands, my hair, the curve of my neck. One sketch was just my back. A line running down my spine, unfinished. It looked like longing. I pressed my palm to it. Felt nothing but paper. That night I lay awake, my husband beside me. His breathing was too steady, too intentional, like he wanted me to hear it. Like he wanted me to know that he could sleep, and I couldn't. I got up around 3 a.m., walked barefoot down the hallway, held the sketchbook to my chest like a diary I was afraid someone would read. I opened the linen closet and took out the scarf he found in the car. I wrapped it around my wrist. Tighter, then tighter still. Morning. He was in the kitchen again. Toast. Eggs. Silence. "You're up early," he said, as if I hadn't been gone for hours inside my head. I sat. He pushed a small object across the table. A key. To the basement. "I need you to clean it," he said. "We're going to renovate." The basement. The one Merrick and I had gone down into that night the heater broke. The one where the silence wrapped around us like a thread. The one where I first wanted him to touch me. I took the key. Didn't say a word. The air in the basement was different now. Colder. Tighter. I turned on the light and stood there for a long moment. The floor was concrete. The shelves dusty. Something in the corner had been covered with a sheet. I pulled it off. It was a mattress. Thin, stained, folded in half. There was no reason for it to be there. None. Unless... No. I closed my eyes, breathed, and then I cleaned. Every surface, every step, every crack in the wall, until my hands ached and my shirt clung to my skin. I left the scarf on the railing when I came up. On purpose. The next day, he said we'd be driving to the lake house. For space, he said. I didn't ask whose. The drive was long, mostly quiet. Trees passed. He turned the radio off. At one point, I glanced at the rearview mirror, out of habit. No one in the back seat. Just a ghost of something that used to be there. We arrived before dusk. He lit a fire. Poured wine. I didn't drink. He didn't mind. "You're quieter," he said. "I always have been." No, not with him. He said it like a fact. I didn't argue. He took something out of his pocket. Not the scarf. The sketchbook. My heart stopped. "You left this in the laundry room," he said. I stared. He flipped through the pages casually, like it didn't matter, like each line wasn't a confession drawn in graphite. "Talented," he said. "He saw you, didn't he?" I didn't answer. He smiled. That smile again. Then he leaned back in the chair and said, "You're not going to sleep upstairs tonight." I swallowed. "Where then?" He pointed toward the door. "The shed." My breath caught. "You're joking." He didn't blink. "I want you to remember how small he made me feel. I want you to feel that small too." I stood. Walked outside. The air bit my face. My hands. My spine. The shed was unlocked. Inside, it was cold. Wood walls. A single cot. Nothing else. I lay down without undressing. Curled into myself. And didn't sleep. At sunrise, I walked to the lake. Stood barefoot in the frost. The cold was clean. Alive. I imagined Merrick there, skipping stones like he once did. His sleeves rolled. The way he bent down, steady and calm. The sound of his voice when he said, "You look like you belong in the water." Not drowning. No. Floating. Back at the house, my husband poured coffee. "I'm proud of you," he said. "You did as you were told." Something inside me curled like paper near flame. I smiled. But not the smile he expected. Something quieter. Darker. A smile that remembered everything. Because the truth was, Merrick hadn't really left me. He had left behind something much worse. A want that wouldn't go away. And I can't stop replaying it. Not because I want to, but because it won't let me go.